Hi, I'm Gina, and welcome to Oxford Online English. In this lesson, you can learn how to understand native speakers in English. Many English learners find it difficult to understand native speakers, even after years of study. This can be frustrating and demotivating.
However, there are some simple things you can do to improve your English listening and make it easier to understand native English speakers. In this lesson, you'll see 5 simple tips you can use to understand native English speakers more easily.
Look at this sentence. I am from France. Imagine you're talking to someone. How would you say it? Would you say this sentence with the contraction, I'm from France? Or would you say the full form, I am from France?
Now think about these sentences. He has already told me. I would like to see that film. They will not be here until tomorrow. All of these sentences can be contracted. Can you see how? He's already told me. I'd like to see that film. They won't be here until tomorrow. Would you pronounce the contractions or not? Think about it and be honest. It's not a test.
Here's the problem. Many English learners don't use enough contractions when they speak. They use the full form. For example, he has instead of he's. If you don't use contractions when you speak, it will be difficult to understand them when you're listening. Why is this a problem?
Native speakers almost always use contractions when they're speaking. If you find it difficult to understand contractions, you'll always have problems when you're trying to understand native speakers. So, what's the solution?
Very simple. Use contractions more in your speech. To do this, choose a simple topic. For example, your family, and record yourself speaking for 1 minute. Listen to the recording and try to find any places where you could have used contractions, but didn't. Then, repeat the exercise and try to use more contractions. Then, try again with a different topic. If you use contractions yourself, it'll become easier to understand them.
Here's a simple question in English which is often difficult for English learners to understand. What are you doing? Why do so many people find it difficult to hear this question correctly? Let's look. First of all, the letter T in the word what is usually not pronounced. It changes to a D sound, or it's reduced to a glottal stop T. Secondly, the word are is not pronounced R. It doesn't rhyme with car or far. It changes to a very short sound, Next, the word you is not pronounced you. It doesn't rhyme with to or do. It also becomes a very short sound, y. Finally, the words are not pronounced with spaces in between. The whole question is pronounced like one long word.
So the question which is written, what are you doing, sounds like, what are you doing? Of course, if you think are should be pronounced are, and you should be pronounced you, and so on, you'll expect to hear, what are you doing? And of course, you probably won't understand the natural pronunciation. What are you doing? What can you do about this?
Here are two suggestions. One, learn about weak forms. Weak forms are words which have a different pronunciation in a sentence. Learning about weak forms can show you that there is some logic to English pronunciation, even though you might not think so. Two, pay attention to how people speak. Don't think about what you read in your English textbook. Listen to how people pronounce words and sentences in real life. You'll realise that there's a big difference between textbook English and natural English. Another good exercise here is dictation. Choose something to listen to, like a podcast or a YouTube video, which is not too difficult. Listen for 1 minute. Try to write down everything you hear. Pause as often as you need to. This way, you can train yourself to follow native English speech.
Look at a question with a word missing. What's the missing word? You ready? If you're an average English student, you said that the missing word is are. That's the correct answer, but it's also not the best answer.
What? How can the correct answer not be the best answer? What are we talking about? Actually, the best answer is that there are no words missing. You can just say, "You ready?" In spoken English, you don't need to say are. In fact, you can make the question even shorter and just say, "Ready?"
Native speakers very often leave out words like this. Again, if you're expecting to hear a full question, these shorter questions can be confusing. So, when can you leave out words like this?
In yes-no questions, which have the word you, it's often possible to make the question shorter. For example, have you finished? Are you going? Do you want to come? All of these questions can be shortened. You finished? Or finished? You going? Or going? You want to come? Or want to come? So, what should you do?
Try to use these shortened questions when you speak. Like all of this advice, you need to use it yourself. If you use it when you speak, it'll be easier for you to understand others who speak in this way. Remember that native speakers very often shorten questions like this.
Here's a question. Do you need to understand every word to understand what someone is saying? What do you think? Very often, English learners focus on the parts they don't understand. That's natural, but it's not always helpful.
To answer our question, no, you do not need to hear and understand every word to understand someone's message. Imagine that you are in the kitchen with your friend who is cooking something. Your friend asks you a question and you hear, "Can you?" Okay, so you didn't hear or understand the full question, but that's often not a problem. First of all, you heard the words, "Can you?" So you know that your friend wants you to do something. Secondly, you're in the kitchen, cooking. Whatever your friend wants, it's almost certainly connected to that. Probably, your friend needs you to help with something or give them something.
By using the context, you can often understand someone without hearing every word. But, you say, that's not really understanding native speakers. I want to understand native speakers, not guess what they mean. Actually, native speakers do this too. You probably do it in your own language, so there's no reason not to do it in English. Don't think, I don't know the word, so I can't understand the sentence. It's not true.
And if none of this works, use another simple trick. Ask. Ask the person, "What did you say? Can you say that again?" Again, native speakers do this all the time. There's no reason you shouldn't do it too. Often, English learners are afraid to ask someone to repeat something or to admit they don't understand. But if you do this, you have no chance to understand and no chance to communicate. Remember, no one understands everything everyone says, and it's completely natural to ask someone to say something again. Let's look at one more important tip.
Here's a question. What does native English sound like? Here's another question. Do you prefer the sound of British English or American English? Actually, those are both terrible questions, which make no sense. Do you know why? The reason these are bad questions is there's no such thing as British English. If you think about British English, you probably imagine someone speaking like this.
But most British people don't sound anything like that. It's the same for American English. People from different places and different backgrounds will speak in different ways. Then, of course, there are many other countries where English is officially the first language. Ireland, Zambia, Australia, Kenya, Canada, Papua New Guinea, New Zealand, Belize, South Africa, Singapore, and many more. The world of English is much bigger than just the UK and the US, and you'll be a better English speaker and listener if you realize this.
Unfortunately, many English learners react negatively when they hear a native speaker speaking in a way that they're not used to. They say things like, "I don't like that person's pronunciation." "That person doesn't speak good English. I prefer British English," or "I prefer American English." "That person's English sounds wrong. I can't understand." But here's the thing. In a real-life situation, like a job interview, a meeting, or a party, you'll meet native speakers from different places with different accents. It's your responsibility to understand them and communicate with them. They aren't going to change how they talk for you. So, what can you do about this?
Don't just listen to one kind of English. If you love the sound of classical British English, then fine, but listen to other voices too. You can train yourself to understand almost anything, but you need time and practice. Listen to a range of voices and accents regularly, and you'll be able to understand more of what native speakers say to you. Before we finish, we have a question for you. In which situations do you find it most difficult to understand native English speakers? Please let us know in the comments.
You can find more of our free English lessons on our website, oxfordonlineenglish.com. Thanks for watching.
See you next time.